And thank you all so much for tuning into another episode of Stuff That Matters. Today, we are joined by Kristy Andrews. She is the Director of Development for HBOT4Heroes, a nonprofit organization utilizing hyperbaric oxygen therapy to combat suicide for veterans, doing a lot of great work in the Raleigh area. Kristy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kristy, we probably have 1,000 questions, and probably a bunch of them are going to be not very intelligent questions because this is new and super fascinating. But we love at New Hope. We love new and innovative things to try to make people better and make people healthier. And to think that we have achieved the pinnacle of mental health treatment in 2025 is not true. So anybody who's kind of pushing the envelope is just our hats are off. But we're gonna have a ton of questions for you. And so why don't you just start maybe with, for folks who have no idea what HBOT is, what it does, or its kind of origin story. Do you mind starting there, and then we can kind of get into your origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny because when you talk about new and innovative and things like that, well, hyperbaric oxygen therapy isn't actually new at all. It's been around for over 100 years. Really, what we're doing here is we're taking something that's been around for so long, a proven modality, and we're making it accessible to the people who need it. And so really with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it is as simple. We always say it's as simple as breathing because that's all that it is a simple combination of oxygen and pressure. And so our veterans are really finding that when they do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, when they sit in this pressurized chamber and they breathe 100% medical grade oxygen, their PTSD is starting to be reduced. The traumatic brain injury symptoms are healing, and we're giving your brain what your brain needs. That's oxygen, right? Like how we can live without food, we can live for a little bit of time without water, but how long can we live without oxygen? I mean, it all makes sense, right? We need to give the brain what the brain needs so that the brain can heal. So that's what we're doing here at HBOT4Heroes, because nobody else is really paying for it. Insurance doesn't pay for it, not to restore brain health. The VA is not paying for it for them. So that's why we exist.
So, all right. So, hyperbaric oxygen chamber. That's the right word.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So
yes,
those have been
hyperbaric
around.
oxygen therapy.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's been around for a long time for medical conditions. When did it start crossing over into, I guess, like the mental health space? Where did that start?
I would really say that probably it's been going on for a long time, but it was really so we in North Carolina in 2019, House Bill 50 was passed that authorized the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy to treat our veterans with PTSD and TBI. Now that was based off a lot of data that took I wouldn't say decades. I don't think it's been that long, but it took years to compile that proved that something that is so simple can absolutely heal the brain. And so North Carolina was essentially right on the heels of Oklahoma passing that law. So that's what we're seeing right now is these states are stepping up and passing law because there is nothing on the federal side that's authorizing the use of hyperbaric. So it really right now is a state by state basis. And then the states are stepping up to help pay for it for our veterans. So that's what we've seen in North Carolina. We didn't really, and we can get into the funding part of this later, but we didn't really get the funding this year because, well, Mother Nature wasn't kind to North Carolina last year. There was Hurricane Helene did a number on North Carolina, so there was other complications and things like that. But what's really important to know about this is that really, I would say probably within let's say probably the good last 10 years, that's really when the states have started, to step up here.
How does again, a lot of questions, and it's awesome. I mean, I love, how does an HBOT treatment, so I'm a licensed therapist and mostly work with adolescents, but my lane has kind of been in trauma and PTSD, not necessarily with veterans, but more, childhood sexual abuse and physical abuse and chaos. But a lot of that has the same residual effects on on the brain, right? I mean, childhood, it all is that flooding of flooding the brain with horrible stuff that the brain was not meant to process, and it kind of scrambles things. So, traditional treatments at the VA, I'm sure if we asked the VA would say, oh yeah, we do trauma therapy all the time. We got some great PTSD therapists, which they probably do. That being said, if the outcomes aren't as strong, how does HBOT outcomes, is it just, because I'm a big fan of like EMDR, for example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that type of modality, but there's just a lot of, I think there was kind of an old school idea of trauma therapy that was, hey, we have to talk this out and unpack this for years, right? And now I think some of these models, some of these other methods are coming along saying, yeah, you could do some of that, but that actually probably doesn't do a lot physically within the brain itself. And it sounds like what you guys do, I mean, they're not talking in this chamber, they're getting pumped in with oxygen. How do the outcomes compare? And then if you could, read us into any of the science of what is truly happening for somebody with a kind of a PTSD brain, where that brain has been damaged by their experiences, and what happens when they go into the chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first, I do want to mention, of course, I'm not a doctor or a nurse,
Yep.
just a girl trying to help our veterans. But from what I do know and from what I understand about hyperbaric oxygen therapy and from what I know and understand about PTSD, is that there's so much more data that is coming out that PTSD is biologically changing our brains. And so it's not just a mental health issue anymore. It's biologically changing our brain. And we really need to look at that as a brain injury, an injury to the brain. So one of the things that hyperbaric oxygen therapy is doing is not only is it increasing your stem cells by an extremely rapid rate. I think the data actually says like after like 20 dives, they call them dives in the industry, by the way, the treatments. After about 20 treatments, your stem cells are increased. I think it's like 800 times. That's huge. Just your body is starting to repair and heal. There's something that happens in our brains called a neurogenesis and angiogenesis, which is our body's ability to grow new blood vessels, increase blood flow to damaged areas. And so your body has the ability to do all of this and to naturally heal. And so that's what we're really seeing with the brains of our veterans is that we've experienced such extreme trauma with PTSD. And trauma is going hand in hand with the physical part of what our veterans are seeing in the battlefield, traumatic brain injuries. And traumatic brain injuries is not always that we have hit our head, is blast injuries, is being behind the gun, the machine guns. There's so much that goes into this. Our bodies just were never designed to take that type of trauma. And so when your brain is being bounced all over the place from one side to the next, there's trauma that is physically happening in our brain. So hyperbaric oxygen therapy is giving your body what your body needs so that your body can heal. And so there's a lot of data out there too, especially about in the acute stage of of like a concussion. So like if you give your body what it needs, the oxygen at that time when the injury is in the acute stage, you don't need that many treatments. You maybe need like maybe 3 or 4. It all depends on the the injury itself. But yeah, it just depends on each person, what they're seeing. But overall, what we do at HBOT4Heroes is we're funding our veterans to receive up to 40 treatments of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Because that's what we've kind of seen is that most of the veterans that are coming to us, these are not injuries that happened a month ago, even a year ago. I mean, we're treating Vietnam veterans. And for the first time, some of them are actually getting relief from PTSD. And you hear Vietnam veterans who are saying, I never really realized that that's what I was dealing with my whole life. Until the PTSD was gone, till my brain started actually healing. So, I mean, it's miraculous, right? God created our bodies to heal. And so that's what we're doing here is we're giving the body what it needs to heal. So you're talking about data and everything else. There are so much data, thousands and thousands of stories on hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And if you look up Dr. Paul Harch, I would say really that's kind of, from what I understand, really where it started with treating veterans and being able to, he was doing the scans, the brain scans, and tracking everything along the way so that we're actually looking at the blood flow. And there's a veteran, he's kind of just like, just a case study almost. It's just like he's the one that we always reference as his scan, because when you look at baseline, like his original baseline, and then you look at after 80 treatments, I mean, the blood flow alone that has increased in his brain is phenomenal. I mean, it's mind blowing. And that's the only thing that he did was he sat in a pressurized chamber and breathed oxygen.
And so that even for some of would you call them patients or customers or?
We simply call them heroes.
Heroes?
As a nonprofit.
That's the best answer you could have given. So for the heroes who come through, is the recommendation that they augment that or supplement that with psychotherapy of any kind? Or is the data kind of like, well, you can, but you don't need to?
Yeah, so essentially, since we're the nonprofit, we partner with a clinic.
Okay.
And so we have a preferred clinic that we're working with. It's called Extivita. They're here in the Raleigh, Durham area. And so we really allow them to be able to make anything that's, on the clinician side of things. Yeah. We let them kind of make those determinations if maybe they need to, even do maybe IV therapy. There's other things that they have that we know also works. But I will say a lot of the veterans who have come to us, in many cases, we hear it so often that they've tried this and they've tried that and they're at the end of their rope. And, our main mission here is to stop veteran suicide. That is really what we just embody that so much here at HBOT4Heroes in our messaging and our mission, because that's kind of where we all started. Is we saw the problem with veteran suicide and how it wasn't getting any better, and we're like, what can we do to help heal the brain? And that's how I really just started, getting involved in this, is because I had my own PTSD from the loss of my husband, and while it wasn't suicide, it was cancer. We were very, very young. We were he had just turned 30. I was 31. So this happened quite a long time ago. But that's very traumatic, to go through something like that. And we had a young child. And so when I heard about hyperbaric oxygen therapy for, myself, I thought, well, maybe this is something that I could use for my own health and wellness. I was battling some really bad inflammation at that time too. So this was back in 2019. And yeah, not only did all my inflammation go away and never return, but absolutely, my brain just started getting clearer and the blinds kind of opened. And I thought, my gosh, I haven't even been through the type of trauma that our veterans are seeing. I mean, if it's doing this for me, what could it do for them? And so it's been really exciting to be a part of this, because we've now treated, I think our numbers are right around 350 veterans since 2021, and funded almost 10,000 hyperbaric oxygen dives. And to our knowledge, we have never lost a veteran to suicide through this program. So we like to say that we have saved every life.
Sure, yeah.
Every life.
Wow. We mentioned our fellow co-host on the show, Mike O'Connor, before we started recording, but one of his main roles is he takes a lot of our referrals. He's constantly on the phone, answering emails and whatnot. Today's actually his birthday, and with him being my boss, I figured that this might be a question he would probably ask. But for you guys, is there some sort of referral process? So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but finding heroes to serve, the people come to you. What is the process like to actually, pinpoint those that are in need?
Yeah, so we have referrals that come in from everywhere. So sometimes they're going to come in on our website just from people who stumbled upon us, Google searches, things like that. We're at a lot of events. And so we go to a lot of the events, and it's not just, so there's only 2 people that are on staff at HBOT4Heroes. We keep our overhead very, very low. We wear all the hats. Everybody else is on a volunteer basis. And so we have a very large network of ambassadors who are all volunteers. I would say 90% of them are heroes who went through our program and said, this changed my life. And I learned very quickly that when veterans find something that works and is natural and non-invasive, they want to tell the world about it. They want to help out their fellow brother and sister, and they want to spread that good word. So we have a lot of ambassadors who are essentially our boots on the ground. So they're at different events, they're promoting what we're doing here, they're getting sponsorships. They're just, we're all just trying to do something really good, with our life, and trying to help people along the way. And very big into, I guess, I personally am very big into anything natural, and I think most of our veterans are too, because they're just tired. They're tired of having pills poured down their throat and being in kind of like that zombie-like status. And then you've got pills that create suicidal ideations too. So it's just kind of this vicious cycle for so many of them. But on the referral side of things, and we have psychiatrists who refer. We really get them from everywhere. So right now we've been able to treat some veterans out of state, but for the most part, I would say they're coming to us within North Carolina. We don't have the funding right now for hotel rooms or anything like that. So we use the one clinic here in the Raleigh-Durham area. So most of them are pretty local to this area, might travel from like Fayetteville. But the clinic that we do use, Extivita, they're actually about to open a clinic in Jacksonville next year. And so that'll really kind of allow, and we're going to, of course, go with them with that expansion. And so HBOT4Heroes will have an opportunity to treat veterans from so more like Marines, that Cherry Point area, Camp Lejeune. So that's really exciting because we're going to be able to get in front of so many more heroes that way.
West Virginia, the Mountain State, one of the most majestic places in the country. Breathtaking views, lush forests, serene rivers, and abundant wildlife. Beyond the incredible vistas, West Virginia is also known for our tight-knit communities and loving families. West Virginians are a proud and strong people. West Virginians take care of each other. Sadly, underneath all of this beauty and grandeur lies a crisis that threatens to erode the very backbone of our great state, our families. West Virginia currently leads the nation in the number of youth placed in out-of-state residential treatment programs. Hundreds of youth, hundreds of miles from home, every day disconnected from family, at risk of being lost in the system. It's time we do something about that. With the support and vision of state officials and leadership, New Hope is leaning into this crisis head on. New Hope is bringing our decades of experience in residential care to the Mountain State. 4 new treatment homes will be launched by the end of 2026, which will serve youth who have historically been sent far from home. And hopefully that's just the beginning. It's time we reimagine what residential care can look and feel like in this state. In every community we operate in, we will bring dozens of well-paying careers for passionate and caring therapists, nurses, case managers, and residential care professionals. New Hope won't solve this crisis alone, and it won't be solved overnight. But we can do our part to start turning the tide. West Virginia, a truly majestic place. Our people take care of each other, and they don't back down from a challenge. It's time to bring our kids home.
So a couple questions that might go in a couple different directions, but just a lot of curiosities bouncing in my head. So it sounds like, and again, tell me if this is the wrong way to kind of summarize it, but obviously, and I talk about this in the therapy process a lot too, is like, our body is this kind of incredible machine that actually does have a self-healing thing to it, right? I'm a nail biter, but when I bite my nails, the nails always want to grow back. Like if I get a cut, the body's natural inclination is to heal itself. And then a lot of where we stumble is trying to make sure that we're not putting barriers in front of the body trying to naturally heal itself. And the brain does some of that too. And it sounds like what HBOT does, or what PTSD does, is somewhat dull the body and brain's ability to do some of that self-healing. And HBOT kind of gives it that fuel to get back to baseline, and then even probably beyond baseline of that self-healing. Is that like a fair physical summary of what's happening?
Yes, I would say so. Just looking at the research of it, there's over 8,000 genes that hyperbaric oxygen actually activates and regulates. And so, inflammation is a huge driver for so many of the health conditions that we're
Mm.
all dealing with. And that goes right along the lines of PTSD and brain health. And so there's really, I don't know of anything else out there that is this powerful at being an anti-inflammatory naturally.
Mm.
It literally regulates your body to keep that inflammation under control and to get it under control and keep it under control. So that's huge in the sense of just it being such a powerful anti-inflammatory. And healing the brain, as long. So, but here's the thing too: is when we're looking at like suicidal ideations and these type of things, there's a lot more that goes into that than even just brain health. And
Sure.
so, our veterans are dealing with chronic pain and
Mm.
sleepless nights, and there's a lot that's
Yeah, it's just
happening.
kind of compounding all of these things to
Oh,
make it
yeah,
unbearable,
in their
make
body.
kind of living
So if we
unbearable.
can give them something that's not just focused on brain health, but we're allowing the body to, just what you were talking about, self-heal,
Right.
literally heal from the inside out. And there's so much more that goes involved in this. And they talk a lot about this on the clinic side too, with diet. Nutrition is huge. With this exercise, taking care of yourself and ensuring that you do get enough sleep, but actually being able to sleep. And that is something that hyperbarics does do. And I would say that's pretty consistent across the board, is people come into us and heroes saying for the first time, for so
I'm sleeping.
long, I could sleep.
Well, and I'm not, I'm not necessarily anti-psychiatry, so this is not an anti-psychiatry rant, but I think it's fair. I think even psychiatrists would agree that largely what psychiatry does and psychiatric medications is to kind of try to lessen the negative symptoms of something. It doesn't really have a positive, it doesn't always have a positive, that's not its role, is necessarily to make you happier. It kind of tries to make you less sad, like on some of these kind of how these medications
Yeah.
work. And it certainly doesn't have necessarily a physical healing dynamic, right? It's really more about symptom reduction as opposed to kind of core healing. And I think that's one of the major issues with going down a psychiatric medication route purely, or going out around just that route, is it's really just about masking or dulling negative symptoms, and it doesn't necessarily address core healing.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty fair statement. There's a lot out there for especially our veterans with what we call coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And so, the coping mechanism is designed to just that, to cope, with the PTSD, the trauma that you've seen, but it's not necessarily healing. Now, there's a healing aspect that, of course, could happen when we cope with that. Again, I'm not a doctor or a nurse, but what we're doing is beyond that coping mechanism, where we're actually restoring the brain health. We're healing. We're
Yeah.
allowing the body to heal, and so yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, which to your point is kind of not how even in the dialogue and the language we use around coping with something, we're almost, even in that language, we're basically sending a message of you have a lifelong condition, and so now you just have to cope with it. It's kind of like how we've historically almost accepted the
Yeah.
idea of PTSD. And it
Hmm.
sounds like some of what you're seeing with your intervention is, no, there's actually a way to restoration is possible. Coping and restoration are two wildly different
Yes, for
outlooks
sure.
on what's possible, right? I mean, that's a very
Yeah.
different outlook on what's possible.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we say too that there are quite a few veterans who come to us who needed to do the coping mechanism side of this. They needed the group therapy. They needed the therapy dog. They needed things to get them to this point where they can even find hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Like those things did help save their lives to get here. But
Mm,
now we're at this point where they're like, it's not enough. I don't I don't want to continue on the road that I'm on. And I want to get better. And I want to get better for my family and my kids and for myself. And it's just not enough. And so it's
mm,
kind of like, I don't ever want to say that we're the last resort by any means, but so many people just don't know enough about hyperbaric oxygen therapy that and the doctors aren't telling them about it, that we definitely are not their first option. I mean, that's kind of what
mm,
we've been seeing. It's not like, hey, I got a brain injury, I'm going to go do hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Now, more and more people are knowing about it and understanding the benefits of it when a brain injury is in the acute stage. However, I mean, just history shows us again, veterans coming to us from Vietnam stage, the Vietnam era. It's been 20, 30 years of their injuries and coping, with them. And they're just, they're just done, they want to, they just want something else.
sure.
And I mean, if you go to our website and there's a section that says get treatment. And in that section, we ask you to identify, some things that you're going through and reasons why you want to be considered, for this program. And I personally read, they all come to me. And I personally read every one of them, and it'll
Mm,
break your heart. I mean, the things that they say, because they're so tired. Our veterans are so tired. So to be able to give them hope and to be able to give them something that is so simple, it's just simple as breathing. I mean, it's truly remarkable, and I feel so blessed to be able to do what I do every day, and to be able to help our heroes who have risked everything, for us as Americans.
sure. Mm,
Kristy, you mentioned the different events that you guys have a presence at, and obviously the reception that you've been getting from the heroes that you've been helping. But just talk a little bit more about that specifically, the reception that you've been receiving, different success stories, maybe anything that comes to mind from whether it's one specific hero, maybe early on, those initial the tests, if you will. Some of the reception, how people have been, the impact that you guys have been making.
Oh, I love that. I love that question. I could talk about this forever. um, well, I think I give such a cool perspective on this because I was the first employee ever hired at HBOT4Heroes. Like we were just kind of hey, we need to do this, and we think you'd be great leading this up. So like the first events we went to, nobody knew who we were. Nobody
mm,
knew about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And now, years later, like we go to this and people are just like, oh my gosh, I know all about this. I went through your program. Or, because I mean, now we're 350 veterans in. Uh, and the stories, oh my gosh. I mean, I always say every event we go to, I'm like, we're here for one person. I'm like, one person, we're going to change their life today. They're going to find out about us and we're going to change their life. And that has proven to be the case in every single way. And I'll give you one example. It's probably one of my most favorite ones that happened about a year ago. And if you go on our website, HBOT4Heroes.org, that's the number 4, there's a place there called Veteran Stories. And we have
mm,
so many veteran testimonials on there. And there's this beautiful lady who came up to our booth it was a VA Live event. So all these veterans are there just trying to get their benefits. And so we set up a table and we're just like, hey, we were funded by the state at this point. So we're like, hey, this is like essentially a state benefit. Like the state's paying for it. Take advantage of it. She came up there and she spilled out her entire heart to me, and we held hands and we cried, and she told me how suicidal she was. And I just kind of almost begged her. I was like, please take advantage of this and let us help you. And watch her testimonial, because she talks about the event. She talks about meeting me, and she talks about how today she doesn't have those thoughts, and she's not suicidal anymore, and that we absolutely helped save her life. And so those are the type of things that, my gosh, from being somebody who has had their family torn apart and has experienced such extreme loss, man, I mean, there's no better way for me to be able to just give back and do things like this, like the podcast, and just tell the world about something that's working. And even if you're not here in North Carolina, there are other states that are doing this. There are ways to be able to get this funded. Just look into it and take advantage of it, because I always tell people, you have nothing to lose, but you have everything to gain. Everything. So, I mean, try it. And I'm so glad Debbie did. I'm so glad she tried it. But yeah, those are the type of stories we hear just non-stop. I mean, we have a whole page of them. It's pretty incredible.
How long does like a typical dive take? If somebody goes in and they have a 2:00 appointment, when are they coming out?
Yeah, so it takes right at an hour and a half.
Okay.
So what a dive consists of is the chamber is pressurized. So I can speak on the clinic that we use.
Okay.
For the most part, it's all industry standards. There are different types of pressure, but they pressurize to the equivalent of 33 feet underwater, which is a 2.0 ATA. That's an atmospheric absolute. So that's increasing your pressure essentially 2 times. Okay, so that's equivalent of 33 feet underwater. So they're going to go in this chamber, and that chamber is going to be pressurized. And when you hit bottom, which is right at that pressure equivalent of 33 feet underwater, you're going to breathe 100% medical grade oxygen. You're going to do that for an hour. And there is actually some industry standards that are out there too, with air breaks, that you don't even notice it. You just think you're breathing oxygen for 60 minutes, but there are air breaks that happen within that. So I believe at this point, I think a lot of clinics have adapted those air breaks. It just allows your body to essentially go into like hyper overdrive healing. More stem cells are created. The whole miracle, is happening when they actually toggle kind of back and forth between the air breaks and the oxygen. So there's a lot of scientific things that happen there that I'm definitely not qualified to talk about. So I don't want to say anything wrong, but that's the way that I understand it. And they have adapted these air breaks, which I think is really cool. It's just an amazing way for you to almost get essentially almost get like 2 treatments in one, and so 85 minutes. 85 minutes. And I know at the clinic that we use, if you're cleared to be able to dive twice a day, a lot of our veterans do take advantage of that. And so they'll do 2 treatments in a day. And we've had some of them come here and stay and essentially just kind of like knock out the whole 40 treatments within 3.5 weeks. But in a normal situation, we do just ask for our veterans to complete the treatments within 4 months. We know it's a time commitment. But
is that kind of there's like it's almost, I am trying to not mix metaphors, but you got kind of like the intensive stage, and then does it transition to a maintenance stage? Is this something that the folks in this industry would say, yeah, you should probably get this once every 2 weeks after you've kind of achieved baseline, or is it just unique to every person and their walk and their journey?
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely unique to every person. We do have quite a few veterans who will come back and want to do what they call a tune-up at the clinic. But I would say the average veteran, once they do their 40 treatments, we don't really hear from them again. And that's a
Okay.
blessing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a blessing, right?
That's a
Because
testament to its impact.
no
Yeah.
news is good news, right? Or at least that's the way we take it. We hear from them. I wouldn't say we don't hear from them. We hear from them in more of a positive way, in the sense of, I want to volunteer with you. I want to get involved. Or we hear from them a year or two later, their name comes up as a referral, whatever it might be. But again, this is where I think nutrition and diet and exercise and your lifestyle play a huge factor. And because at this point, you've done 40 treatments, your inflammation is under control. New blood vessels have been grown to your brain. Blood is flowing in places that it wasn't before. It couldn't, oxygen could not be reached in these places. And that's the big thing that Hyperbarics is doing, is that when you combine that oxygen and that pressure, that oxygen is now spilling out over your red blood cells into your blood plasma. And so there's places in our body that were not oxygenated. They were not receiving oxygen at the level that they should, because your red blood cells weren't reaching that, but your blood plasma can. And so when we're oxygenating that blood, that plasma in your blood, that's when some pretty miraculous things, start happening. Because we're at this atmospheric level, we're breathing 21% oxygen. And so, your brain's stealing 20% of that.
Is there any evidence that like the oxygen is getting worse over time that we're all breathing, because we're all just still sitting on top of each other all the time and we're breathing in plastic and we're breathing in a bunch of stuff? Is that part of the equation as to why this is almost so much more needed now, or do we not? Is that just a speculation?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, but it does come up often. We always say you're breathing 21% oxygen on a good day.
Okay. There's so much more unnatural things around us.
There's so many toxins,
Right.
we are really, there's a lot of toxins that we're exposed to on a daily, and when you think about just hyperbaric oxygen therapy again, and not just restoring brain health and getting that inflammation under control, it goes down to a cellular level of healing. And your body being able to essentially clean out the cobwebs. And that's why there's a lot of things that go hand in hand with hyperbarics, like fasting. Water fasting is a big thing. The clinic actually does something that's called the longevity challenge, where you water fast and you do hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And when you combine those two things together, I mean, it is just like the ultimate, like, clean out the cobwebs. And I did it. I did 9 days of water fasting with the hyperbaric. So I can speak of that.
Water only? 9 days of water?
Only water.
Yeah. I can barely
I lost 20 pounds in 9 days.
The Celsius count? Can Celsius count? Because I'm on a Celsius only diet. That's probably not good.
Oh, well, I will tell you, I highly recommend it, though. I mean, I was miserable, but the way I felt afterwards and the energy I had, it was incredible. So we all kind of need that, on a cellular level sometimes. Get rid of those toxins.
Oppositional defiant, documented repeatedly.
Failure to progress, violent tendencies. Let go! They're not safe for community placement. Eyes up, Isaiah.
They don't know me, but they think they do.
I'm so sorry.
I can't help it. I piss people off. Then it's oppositional, defiant. Maybe I am. Or maybe I just don't know how to feel safe.
So a bigger question than Patrick, I want you to jump in. Again, the VA dynamic is fascinating to me, and the state-federal dynamic is kind of fascinating. And, again, you guys are a nonprofit. You guys are kind of getting started, and hopefully, I mean, the sky seems to be the limit, and hopefully you guys are about to catch a wave of awareness that really blows up. But it's kind of fascinating that the VA is not on board and that the federal government is not on board. Do you sense that is there something actually material that they're basing that on, or is it just the wheels of large scale change just take a long time to turn and old habits die hard kind of stuff? Does that make sense? What do you think that is?
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, just on the federal side of things for change.
Right.
Because I think there's just been so much that's come out that it's just not working. Whatever you're doing, it's just not working. The
Right.
numbers really are not getting better for suicide prevention. We can't keep, just the
Well,
pharmaceutical.
everybody kind of rags on the VA. I mean, people have
Mhm.
individual positive experiences, but it feels like it's a
Yeah,
fair statement that
exactly.
the overall
And
sentiment is not positive about the VA nationally. It's just not.
That's right, that's right, and like my dad, for instance, my dad like has wonderful things to say, about the VA, like wonderful. And I'm not a veteran myself. Can't say one way or the other. I have not experienced it personally. But when we look at what's working and what's not working, we're definitely at the point where we have so much data, and not just here at HBOT4Heroes, but nationwide, that this works. So you
Right.
kind of get to the point where you're like, they can't ignore us anymore, right? Like, and there's a lot of, there's so many studies out there. There's studies that there's been holes poked in them. And I feel, I always try to choose my words very carefully when it comes to the federal government and the VA, just because I'm not as aware of some of the things as others. I have not lived that life. But I can tell you that I know on the federal side of things, there is legislative efforts that are going into place, pilot programs, hopefully, that will eventually allow the VA to help fund hyperbaric oxygen therapy, write prescriptions for it. Whether things like this will ever take off, I mean, who knows,
Well, because my mind kind of almost goes to, if I was, based on what you were saying, even capturing it at the acute stage, that if, and I've had friends and colleagues and just professional contacts that have been veterans, and sometimes, there are folks who truly love their military experience, and they are braver than I could ever imagine possibly being. And it's almost like an athlete who says, well, I want to keep playing the game, but I can't because this injury is just going to keep getting worse. And there are veterans out there who stopped doing active deployments because their PTSD, they had some awareness that this is just getting too much.
Mhm.
It almost feels like this should be something that the military would have an investment in actually embracing. It's like, hey, every month we're going to do this hyperbaric for active duty service members or in between deployments or something like that, if it's truly has that ability to reset. Does that make sense? I mean, that feels
Yes.
like a natural. If the VA doesn't want to do it, why doesn't just the military embrace this as a way for our fighting men and women to be consistently healthier while they're actually in active duty? It might even elongate their desire to stay in active duty, if I'm
Yeah.
drawing those conclusions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, even here at HBOT4Heroes, like policy change and procedures and things like that, that's always, very high on our list and radar, is just, being an advocate for things just like that. There are mobile hyperbaric units. They're called soft chambers. They don't pressurize to the same equivalent as like the clinic that we go to, but we know that pressure is good. You're still getting pressure. You're still getting oxygen. It's better than nothing. So there are ways to be able to absolutely do that and implement that. I don't know enough about whether or not what's feasible and what's not, on that kind of scale. And that's kind of what we're really hoping that we're going to be able to collect some good data on too, once we can go to that Jacksonville clinic.
Right.
And we can start looking at, helping some of these men and women that might be more in the acute stage that are active military. We really focused on veterans because when the state was paying for this program, that was what they were paying for. They were paying for our veterans. The whole thing was kind of circled around that. So, without that state funding, and we still do, absolutely, we have a lot of people working on this for us. So we absolutely do still trust and believe and hope and pray that there's more funding coming our way from the state. But beyond that, it's really kind of helped us, open our eyes that there are so many grants and there's a lot of different options out there that we need to expand this a little bit more to the active military. So, and it shouldn't be a nonprofit paying for it. It just shouldn't. Like it should be something that the military pays for.
The benefit of their,
And first responders, that's big on our radar too, is being able to expand this to first responders. So that's going to be, on our goals for 2026. We're putting some things in place there too. But when you really look at the active military, I mean, think how much stronger they all would be and how much amazing this oxygen, could be for their brain. Just give them what their body needs to be able to stay strong. And you were talking about athletes. I mean, look at there's so many athletes that do this.
Sure.
So many. LeBron James is really big. My husband was just watching a documentary the other day. Every time he sees anything about hyperbarics, he always screenshots it and sends it to me. He was watching something the other day, and it's really big in athletics. It keeps their body strong and it allows their body to heal at an accelerated rate, which is really, really important, especially as we age.
Building off of that, you kind of touched on a little bit for early 2026 goals, but for HBOT, I guess 5-year plan, maybe 5 months. Who knows if funding really takes off? What's the vision for HBOT? Maybe it's expanding into other states, really, expanding your reach, and just overall as a whole, the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, maybe becoming more mainstream. You mentioned it already. A lot of the premier athletes utilize it, but I was reading your LinkedIn earlier. You posted something about a month ago about a 13-year-old boy who had a concussion from a biking accident. So just becoming more mainstream and maybe widely accepted as a form of therapy for all sorts of cognitive brain issues and even mental health as well.
Yeah. And that 13-year-old boy was actually my nephew because my family I laugh about this. It's not funny at all, but my family does have a running joke that don't hit your head or Aunt Kristy or mom is going to put you in a hyperbaric chamber. That is.
Get in the chamber. Everybody get in the chamber. Yeah.
There's
worse things to have a running joke about, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You're trying to help someone.
It's so true. They've all done hyperbarics for whether it's concussions or even my son got bit by a dog and got a highly antibiotic resistant bacteria infected with a mycobacterium. And so we did hyperbarics and just a 6-week antibiotic therapy. It blew the minds, of infectious disease who wanted to put them on antibiotics for a year, 6 months to a year. So we do hyperbarics for all the things because it's good for all the things. I mean, the list is insane for what it's good for. And so that's just more on, a personal level. But on HBOT4Heroes as a whole, absolutely, the first responders is going to be very big on our radar, tapping more into the active military with that Jacksonville expansion. We've had such a beautiful record with Extivita, who has just incredible safety protocols. That clinic is just amazing what they have accomplished. And they are really setting the standards for hyperbaric oxygen therapy for the entire country. So we're so lucky to just be kind of riding that with them. And then we're also, of course, looking at possibly, we're always looking at other clinics. It's just a matter of funding. So if there's other clinics that we can tap into, that we can be the nonprofit to fund, the veterans, we absolutely would be interested in that. We do also, as a we have to have very strict safety protocols. So they need to be complying with those protocols. So there's certain things that we look at as a nonprofit to ensure that essentially they're up to the same standards as the clinic that we've been using. But, yeah, in 5 years, I would love to see HBOT4Heroes expand. And it's going to happen. I mean, beyond North Carolina, I mean, that's already essentially kind of happening. We're seeing more veterans and military come to us, but it would be amazing when we can get to that point where they can stay in their own backyard. They can find a hyperbaric clinic there. And that's really the ultimate goal, right? Is you're starting to see more and more people understanding what this is, how it's beneficial, that it's totally non-invasive. And we are definitely living in a society where we all want natural, integrative healing. We want to take care of our bodies the best that we can. So you're starting to see more of these things, popping up, and like even more of those soft chambers, chiropractor offices, things like that, which is a little more health and wellness beyond the like FDA cleared healing for hyperbarics. So yeah, on the HBOT4Heroes side of things, we're going to take it as far as we can with education, funding. It's just funding is really the driving source. I mean, we're a nonprofit, so without funding, we can only do so much. We're very big voices, very big. I mean, you kind of have to be, and you really look at it as we have to be the voice of the people who can't speak anymore, who aren't here with us anymore, who never had the option to use a modality like this. I mean, everybody's different. I don't know if it would have saved their lives if those suicidal ideations would have calmed, but we do have a 57% success rate in reducing or eliminating suicidal ideations. So I can only imagine what that's going to be in 5 years from now when we have so much more data and so many more veterans. So funding is such a big thing of this. And so I really drive that home because right now we're not being funded by the state. And so we're running fundraisers and we're doing all this, but it does cost us a little over $6,000 to put one hero through this treatment of 40 treatments. And that's a negotiated price with the clinic. So it goes really, really fast. And our wait list stays about 100 veterans deep. So, I mean, it'll make you lose sleep at night on when the state, gave us $500,000 last year and $500,000 year before, and then nothing this year. It really makes you lose sleep on, well, what are we going to do now? I mean, we're still pretty young. So we have a lot of grants going on out there. We have a beautiful financial history. We have a platinum rating on GuideStar. We're doing all the right things, and so in many ways, we walk the path, and we're a very faith-based organization. So we have a lot of trust in God and the places that He has put us in. That we're gonna succeed. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Sometimes it's we're kind of in that position that it's a little challenging to get there right now. Because we've had to stall so much we're still pushing them through as much as we can, with the clinic. And I will say that if anybody comes to us who does have suicidal ideations, Extivita is absolutely phenomenal. And even if we do not have the funding to treat them right there, and then, there's a lot of faith-based. They do all that they can do, and they don't wait. So it's amazing to kind of have that network.
Well, Kristy, you certainly been doing this throughout the duration of this conversation, but final question for you. And again, your chance to kind of encapsulate your overall message, really hammer home the points that are staying true to you the most. But for you, what is the stuff that matters?
Lives matter. I mean, that's why we do what we do. And it's not just lives, it's the quality of life. Because you can physically be here on this earth, but if you're not here, then you're not here for your spouse, your children. You're not here for yourself. You're not being the best version of you. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live that way. And so that's the stuff that matters, is being able to give people a natural way to heal and to find their way back to the person that they were before deployment, and the people that their spouses married, the husbands and the wives, and the fathers and the mothers, and be able to go out there and play ball with your kid again. I mean, that's the stuff that matters, it's those memories and being able to make those memories. And that's the things that we hear. And I will tell you, this is a pretty amazing story. We had a fundraising gala about 6 months ago, and typically during our fundraiser galas, we call a lot of the veterans who went through our program. We invite them to be able to come. We find sponsors so that they can attend, because it's really about them. And I did call one veteran who went through our program, and he had passed away. And it was of natural. He was older, I think Vietnam era. But when I talked to his wife, like, she told me, she's like, I cannot thank you all enough, because even though he did pass away, a few years later, she's like, you gave him back his quality of life that he hasn't had for so long. Like, you gave my husband back to me. That's the stuff that matters.
Well, Kristy, this was an honor, just hearing some of what you're up to and your team, and just truly incredible stuff that is so cool. Again, we could probably talk for another 3 hours about what you're doing. And maybe, if you don't mind, we'd love to catch up again in 6 months or a year and see where you guys are at. And I tend to be one of those people who think that anybody who's trying to do something really amazing and really powerful and really important is going to have barriers thrown at them all the time. It's just how our society and system works. It's actually sometimes like an indication that you are going down an important path, the fact that there's so many roadblocks. So, but I certainly have a ton of faith just from this hour together that you're the kind of person who's going to push back and blow up all those roadblocks and keep on moving forward. And you're not going to let anything stop you, because the data sounds clear. And our heroes deserve better options, and I think really moving from coping to healing is such a powerful message. So we love what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of, your time, and just thank you for all that you're doing for the men and women out there who served our country, who deserve a heck of a lot better than what they've been getting. And they deserve actually true hope and true healing, not just, hey, you'll be okay, live this like okay life for the next 30 years. They deserve better than that. So I love that you're trying to push the system forward. Again, anything that New Hope can do, we'll be here and try to support you. And for folks who've listened and want to learn more, can you drop the website one more time if they want to lean into your mission?
Yes, it's HBOT4Heroes.org. So it's HBOT, the number 4 heroes.org. So remember, that's heroes, HEROES.org.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you, Kristy, for all you're doing. Thanks for spending some time with us. And we will certainly do whatever we can to try to normalize this and publicize this so that people have more education, and that hopefully leads to more access to care. So that's what it's all about.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything that you do. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.